we have one thing now available to men who are not working that we didn't have, even in the 80s, let alone the 1930s. There is a technology now that didn't exist. And some of the work you've talked about screens really prompts me on this. So there is this idea kicking around more online around the kind of male sedation thesis. I do think there's an issue around retreat. I think it is really interesting that for the first time I can really think of in human history, we've got a vast number of disengaged men and crime goes down. That's just very unusual, historically, anthropologically, very unusual. And I wonder if that isn't, and I'd be interested in your view on this, Nick, and others, I wonder if it isn't partly because there is somewhere for those guys to retreat to now that wasn't available to them before. In other words, the internet. And so they're not on the streets burning stuff and breaking stuff and stealing stuff because they're in the basement watching stuff. And that's arguably much better. But it doesn't mean it's good. So I just wonder if there isn't this sort of, so this whole debate about screens now, and how terrible screens are, I sometimes wonder if they might have saved us a little bit from some of the potentially downstream negative social consequences of so many disengaged young men. Which is not to argue in favor of pornography and video gaming, necessarily. But it is to say that what's the counterfactual here? And maybe it's the men who are checking out who are the problem, not the men who are acting out.
I mean, Richard, you don't mention drugs there. I mean, could that be an issue as well?
Absolutely. It's part of the male sedation thesis, especially in the US now, marijuana would be a big part of the conversation. But it is, I mean, I'll repeat the soundbite, which is that previously a lot of these guys would be acting out in various ways, and that did get the attention of policymakers. But if they're actually checking out, and smoking weed and playing games and looking at porn on their mother's basement, that is a horrible stereotype, and it sounds like you're blaming men, which I'm not. But that's a very different kind of expression of male disengagement than the one we had in previous eras, and one much less likely to get the attention of policymakers. Because on its face, it's like, well, he's in the basement. It'd be better if he was working, but he isn't breaking stuff.